Single dad caught his CEO crying in the rain. What he did next made her his forever. They snickered when Brad Holt called him the janitor. Brad's voice rolled across the marble lobby of Meridian Tower with the kind of confidence that doesn't bother lowering itself, the kind that assumes the whole room is an audience. He was looking at Marcus Webb, at the gray maintenance uniform, the equipment cart, the worn steel-toed boots, and he smiled the smile of a man who has never once been uncertain about his place in any room. "Diana," Brad said, turning to the woman beside him, "I didn't realize you'd started taking advice from the maintenance crew." The lobby was full. The night concierge stood behind his desk. Diana's executive assistant, Priya Narayan, was 3 feet away, her face a careful, professional blank. 2 board members who had trailed Brad down from the 14th floor exchanged glances. A woman waiting for the elevator looked at her phone. Everyone heard. Everyone pretended not to. Marcus Webb set down the equipment cart, stood straight, looked at Brad Holt for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to be seen, long enough to watch Brad's smile flicker at the edges, and then turned back to his work without a word. Brad laughed, said something to the board members. They moved toward the exit doors. Diana watched Marcus for a moment. He didn't look back. What Brad Holt didn't know, what Diana Calloway standing next to him didn't know, what none of the people in that lobby understood, was that Marcus Webb had spent 11 years across boardroom tables from men exactly like Brad, had won cases and deals and negotiations that attorneys at firms like Brad still cited in textbooks, had been, once, the kind of person who made men like Brad nervous just by entering a room. What they also didn't know was that by Friday, Brad Holt would be on the phone with his attorney explaining something he could not explain. His hostile takeover of Calloway Development would collapse before it reached a vote. And Diana Calloway, the woman he had just dismissed as finished, would be standing in a conference room she fought to keep, next to a man in a gray maintenance uniform who had quietly saved everything. But first, 8 days earlier, Marcus Webb woke up at 5:48 in the morning to the sound of rain. Jake was already awake. Marcus could hear him moving around the apartment, the particular shuffle of a 9-year-old who doesn't want to be the reason his dad gets up early, but also very much wants his dad to get up early. Marcus lay on his back for a moment, listening to the rain against the glass. He got up. Jake was at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal he'd made himself and a library book about space probes, due back Thursday. Marcus made a mental note. He had a whole running list of mental notes, not written down, because writing them down made them more real. The electric bill, Jake's rain jacket, the one with a tear in the left sleeve, the brake pads on his truck that had been waiting since August. "Morning," Marcus said. "It's raining," Jake said, not looking up. "It is." "Can we get a raincoat?" "Mine has a hole." Marcus made coffee and looked out the window at the November street. The rain came down in flat gray sheets. "I'll look into it," he said. Jake studied his father the way he sometimes did, a long, careful look that Marcus had never entirely gotten used to. Jake was 9. He'd lost his mother when he was 6. There was a quality of attention in him now that hadn't been there before, a quiet watchfulness around the parent he had left. "You okay, Dad?" "Always," Marcus said. He wasn't entirely sure that was true. But some things you say not because they're facts, but because they need to be said. He walked Jake to the bus stop at 7:15 under a shared umbrella, because Jake's jacket had a hole, and watched the bus pull away through the rain. Jake pressed his hand against the fogged window and waved once. Marcus raised 2 fingers back. He had a law degree from Georgetown and 11 years of practice behind him. corporate law, then M&A consulting. Good years, good money, a house, a future, everything that was supposed to come next. Then Clara got sick. He didn't think about it as tragedy. It was just the thing that happened that reshaped everything. 2 years of fighting, and then the fight was over, and Marcus had packed up Jake in the apartment and made a decision he never second-guessed. He would be present. Whatever that cost. Whatever it required giving up. Jake was 7, and he had just lost his mother, and Marcus was not going to lose him too, not to 80-hour weeks, not to business travel, not to the particular absence that high-powered jobs required, even when you were in the room. So he'd taken a job at a facilities management company. The work was physical and honest, and he was good at it. The building where he spent most of his shifts, Meridian Tower, downtown, was well managed, and the cafe on the ground floor gave him a discount on early morning coffee. He knew every floor, every electrical panel, every water main and HVAC corridor. He was invisible in the right way. He liked it. It was on a Tuesday evening in November that he found Diana Calloway standing in the rain. He was rolling his equipment cart through the service corridor at 7:40 p.m. when he noticed the exterior door. It opened to the alley behind the building, a narrow passage between the loading dock and the parking structure, used for deliveries and nothing else. The door was ajar. He pushed it open slightly. A woman stood outside in the rain, no umbrella, a good coat going dark at the shoulders. She wasn't moving, just standing in the alley, staring at the concrete wall opposite. Her posture was the particular posture of a person who is not allowed to fall apart and knows it. Marcus had worn that posture himself once. He propped the door. "Ma'am, there's a dry corridor right here." She turned. He placed her immediately, 14th floor. Her name on the building directory, Diana Calloway, CEO, Calloway Development. He'd held elevator doors for her. She'd said thank you without looking at him both times. "I'm fine," she said. "I don't doubt it," he said. "The corridor's still here." She stood in the rain a moment longer, as if leaving would concede something. Then she walked inside. He handed her a stack of paper shop towels from his cart. Not ideal, but dry. She took them without comment and pressed one against her face. Up close, her composure was more deliberate than it looked. Her hands were shaking. "Bad day?" he said. He wasn't sure why he said it. She almost laughed. "My board voted today to allow a buyout review. 60 days. She heard herself. A flicker of something crossed her face, the slight embarrassment of having said something real to the wrong person. "I don't know why I'm telling you that. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone without a stake in the outcome." She looked at him, not the way she'd looked at him before. "Marcus," he said. "Maintenance, Diana, no title." "I know. 14th floor." Something in her expression shifted. He couldn't tell exactly what it was. Surprise, maybe, or recalibration. 60 days isn't nothing, he said. That's time to build something. The case isn't the problem. She folded the shop towel in half. "The man running the buyout has 3 of my board members already. And he has documents, internal financials, my 5-year operating projections. Nobody outside the company should have those." Marcus was quiet. "That's a securities violation," he said. She stared at him. He caught himself. "I've read about cases like that. Financial news." That wasn't what he'd said. They both knew it. She didn't push. Her phone rang and she looked at it, and whatever had been briefly present in the space between them drew back behind the glass. "I have to take this." She walked toward the elevator. He watched her go. He stood there longer than he needed to. His cart sat beside him, waiting. He knew what the pattern she had described sounded like. He had seen it twice, both times from the inside of the defense. The second case had involved fraudulent document disclosure. They'd won. He'd written the strategy memorandum himself. It was in a box in his hall closet, under 3 years of Jake's school drawings. He pushed his cart forward and went back to work. He saw her the next morning in the lobby cafe. She was in line, a different suit, the same tightly maintained expression. She looked like someone who'd gotten 2 hours of sleep and was making it look like 8. He almost kept walking. He stopped. "Still 60 days?" he said, quiet. She turned. Something moved in her eyes briefly, like a door opening and closing. 59, she said. "Then you still have 59, he said, and kept walking. He heard her exhale behind him. What she didn't notice, sitting 2 tables away in the cafe, under the jacket he'd draped over a chair, was the book he'd left behind when he got up to refill his coffee. Not a novel, not a magazine, a legal treatise, spine creased from years of use, the architecture of corporate transactions, securities law and M&A practice. The name embossed on the inside cover, barely visible from where she sat, read, M.E., Webb. What Diana Calloway couldn't have known. Sitting 59 days from the potential end of her company. Was that the man who just wished her luck had spent 3 years writing case strategy against the exact kind of play that was being run against her right now? She'd find out soon enough. They all would. Brad Holt arrived on Thursday. Marcus was rerouted to a second-floor plumbing repair when he heard the voice in the lobby below, carrying the way certain voices are designed to carry, without effort and without apology. By the time Marcus came back through with his cart, Brad and his 2 associates were heading for the elevator. Brad didn't look. His associate glanced over, said something low, and Brad looked back over his shoulder at Marcus and smiled. "Building management on the job," he said, to no one in particular. The associates smiled. They rode up to 14. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When they came back down, Diana was already in the lobby, clearly trying to intercept her board members before they left. She looked like someone trying to look calmer than she was. Brad saw Marcus near the elevator bank. "Diana," he touched her arm. "I didn't realize you'd started taking advice from the maintenance crew." The lobby went quiet in the particular way lobbies go quiet when something is happening that everyone can see and no one will acknowledge. Priya's face went carefully, professionally still. The 2 board members exchanged a look. The concierge found something important to examine on his desk. Marcus set down his cart, looked at Brad Holt for 3 seconds, then went back to work. Brad held Diana's arm a moment, steering her away, saying something Marcus couldn't hear. His voice was low and pleased with itself. After Brad and his group left, Diana crossed the lobby. She stopped near Marcus's cart. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for that." He looked up at her. "You don't have anything to apologize for." She stopped, pressed her lips together. "That was unnecessary." "It was," Marcus agreed. "It also didn't land the way he meant it to." She almost smiled. Then her phone buzzed, and she looked at it, and her expression tightened. She held it out slightly, as if she needed a witness. Brad's name on the screen. She answered. Listened. Her face went very still. When she hung up, she said, "He claims he has the signature data from my financial projections, not just the documents. The metadata. Timestamps showing they came from inside my company's servers 2 weeks ago." She looked at Marcus. "That means someone gave them to him, someone inside." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Or someone with server access they shouldn't have," he said. "Same thing," In the end, not legally. He stopped, steadied himself. Depending on how he obtained them, if they were taken without authorization rather than voluntarily disclosed, that's a different exposure. For him, Diana stared at him with an expression he hadn't seen from her before. Priya appeared at her elbow. "Miss Calloway, the board wants you upstairs." Diana didn't move for a moment. She was still looking at Marcus. "Priya," she said, "give me 1 minute." Priya retreated, visibly surprised. "Who are you?" Diana said. Not unkindly. "Genuinely, Marcus. Maintenance." He said it steadily. "Third floor HESFAC issues right now. Actually, that's not what I'm asking. I know." He looked at her. "You should get upstairs. And you should call an attorney who specializes in securities litigation. If you don't have one already, I can give you a name." "Why would you?" "Because what's being done to you isn't right," he said. Simple as that. "Name's Catherine Sims. Tell her Marcus Webb sent you. She'll know what to do." He picked up his cart. She stood there watching him go. He didn't look back. What Diana didn't know, standing in that lobby watching him push a maintenance cart toward the service elevator, was that Marcus Webb had referred 3 clients to Catherine Sims over the course of a decade, had co-counseled with her on a hostile takeover defense in 2019. That she would, when Diana called, answer his name with immediate recognition and 15 years of professional trust. He made one call himself that evening, standing in the parking lot in his uniform after his shift. "James, it's Marcus Webb." A pause. Then, warmly, "Marcus, it's been a long time." "It has. I need your help with something. I'll explain. I need you to look at some financial disclosure documents for me." "This about a case?" "Not mine," Marcus said. "Someone who needs it to be." 4 days later, he sat in Diana's office. Priya had tried to stop him at the door. He'd said, "I have something she needs to see." 5 minutes. Diana had appeared behind Priya and said, "Let him in," and Marcus had thought she looked like someone who had made a decision about something. He just wasn't sure what. He sat, set a folder on her desk. Still in his uniform. "The disclosure documents Brad filed with your board," he said. "The projections he included match your internal 5-year model with exact character precision. Not rounded estimates. Not approximations. The decimal points, the formatting, the section headers. Character for character. That's not independent analysis. That's a copy." Diana looked at the folder. Then, at him. "How did you get?" "The documents are public filing. Your attorney will have access to the originals. Have her compare them to your internal files. She'll find it in an hour." "Marcus." Her voice was measured. "I'm going to ask you again. Who are you?" He looked at her across her own desk. This woman who had run her company for 7 years, who had stood in an alley in the rain and not quite let herself fall apart, who was fighting something that wasn't fair with whatever she had left. "Right now," he said, "I'm the man who fixes your building's VAC system." He stood. "Let Catherine Sims do the rest. She'll know what she's looking at." He picked up his jacket and left. He heard her behind him, very quietly say, "I don't understand you." He walked to the elevator, pressed the button, stood there. He didn't understand himself entirely, either. What he knew was this: Jake would be at aftercare until 5:30. The brake pads could wait another week. And whatever this was, this careful, sideways thing he was doing for a woman who'd said thank you without looking at him twice, it mattered in a way that was harder to explain than he wanted it to be. The elevator opened. He got in. The board hearing was set for Friday at 9 a.m. Brad had pulled a favor, accelerated the timeline by 2 weeks. Diana's attorney, Catherine Sims, called Marcus at 6:45 Friday morning. "We have the comparison," she said. "You were right. The disclosure was built from stolen source files. I have a witness coming who can testify to document methodology. But Marcus, they've added 2 new board votes. It's tight. If this doesn't land cleanly, she loses everything." "It'll land," he said. "You're not going to be there?" He looked at Jake, eating breakfast, reading about Jupiter's moons. "I have somewhere to be first," he said. He walked Jake to the bus stop, waited until the bus turned the corner. Then he drove to Meridian Tower, changed into a fresh uniform in the locker room, and took the elevator to the 14th floor. The conference room was already full by the time he slipped in through the back. 8 board members. Brad Holt at the far end, flanked by his attorney and Pamela Voss, the board member who had shifted her vote to Brad's side 3 weeks ago, whose face Marcus had seen in the building directory and nowhere else until now. Pamela sat beside Brad with the specific alertness of someone who has placed a bet and is watching the horses. Diana was at the other end with Catherine Sims. Brad saw Marcus come in. His expression went briefly amused, then dismissive. He leaned to his associate and said something. The associate looked at Marcus's uniform and looked away. Marcus took a chair against the back wall. Catherine stood. "Before we proceed, we have a witness who can speak to the document methodology and the question of original source material. He's on his way up." The door opened. James Whitfield walked in. He was 60, silver-haired, wearing a suit that made the room look slightly less formal around him. Senior partner at Whitfield & Associates, one of the most recognized names in securities law in the country. He scanned the room. He saw Marcus. He stopped. "Marcus Webb," out loud. Genuinely surprised. "I didn't know you were involved in this." The room turned. All 8 board members. Brad Holt. Pamela Voss. Priya in the back. 2 associates who'd come with Brad. Everyone in that room turned and looked at the man in the gray maintenance uniform sitting against the wall. "James," Marcus said. Even, quiet. Brad Holt looked from Whitfield to Marcus and back. "Who is, I'm sorry," Whitfield said. He addressed the room. "I was asked to provide expert testimony today. I didn't know Marcus Webb was involved." He paused. "Marcus served as senior counsel and strategic director at our firm for 11 years. When he left, we lost, and I mean this plainly, the finest M&A strategist we had worked with in a generation. 3 of the cases he led for us are still referenced in securities law curriculum." The room was silent. Pamela Voss's pen stopped moving. Brad's attorney leaned close and whispered something. Brad didn't respond. He was looking at Marcus, at the uniform, at the cart he'd left outside the door. He opened his mouth. He works in the building. He maintains what he does now is his business," Whitfield said, with a finality that closed the subject. "What he built before, I can speak to without reservation." Marcus didn't move. Didn't look around the room. His eyes were on the table in front of him, and then, after a moment, on Diana. She was looking back at him from the other end of the conference table. Her face was very still, not angry, not betrayed. Something more careful than either. The expression of someone who has been shown the answer to a question she hadn't known she was asking. Whitfield testified for 40 minutes. The document comparison was definitive. The disclosure papers Brad had filed could only have been constructed from Callaway Development's internal source files, files that existed in one location, on a company server, accessible to exactly 3 people. One of them was no longer employed by the company. One was Deanna. The third was a financial analyst who had resigned 6 weeks ago and, as Catherine noted for the record, had been hired the following week by a subsidiary of Apex Capital. Brad's attorney called for a recess. The board chair said, "Sit down, Mr. Holt." The SEC representative, who had arrived as an observer, a quiet woman in her 50s, who had said nothing for the duration and taken 2 pages of notes, asked Brad Holt one question when the session concluded. He answered it incorrectly. His attorney placed a hand on his arm. Brad stood. He looked across the room at Marcus, who was still sitting against the back wall. He looked like a man who had prepared many versions of this moment in his head and found that none of them applied. He left with his attorney. Pamela followed, quickly, without looking at anyone. The board went into closed session. Diana and Marcus stood in the hallway outside. It was quiet. The building hum was below them, the particular white noise of a structure maintaining itself. "You could have told me," she said. "I know. From the beginning, from the alley, you could have said, 'I know.'" She turned to look at him. "Why didn't you?" He thought about how to answer that honestly. "Because I needed it to not be about who I used to be. I've spent 3 years building something that isn't that. The moment I say the name and the credentials, everything shifts. People treat you differently. I wanted to." He stopped. "I wanted to just help, without all of that." She was quiet for a moment. "And now?" she said. "Now you know. That the man who has been fixing my building's ventilation system is one of the best M&A strategists in the country. Former," he said. "Current ventilation specialist." She almost smiled. "The real one, not the professional one." It changed her face. "I have questions," she said. "I assumed." But first she looked at the boardroom door. "I think I have a company to save." "You already saved it," Marcus said. "Today just made it official." She looked at him one more time. That same careful look, as if she was adding something up, as if the numbers were finally coming out right. "Dinner," she said. "Not a meeting. Dinner, you and your son. This weekend." "He's 9, Marcus said. "He'll ask about black holes. Then I'll look them up tonight," she said. And she turned and walked back into the boardroom, and the door clicked shut behind her. Outside the building, Marcus could already hear the sound of things beginning to give way. Brad Holt's SEC inquiry opened within 10 days. The formal notice arrived at Apex Capital on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, 2 of his institutional investors had requested statements of disclosure. By the following Monday, 1 had withdrawn. Word moves fast in those rooms. Faster than people expect, and always faster than those caught in it are prepared for. His hostile takeover attempt against Callaway Development was formally abandoned that Thursday. His attorney issued a press statement that used the word refocusing 3 times. The comments on the financial news sites were less diplomatic. He called Diana once. She let it go to voicemail. She did not return it. Some distances, once they've been made clear, don't require a response. Pamela Voss was removed from the Callaway board by a vote of 7-1, the one being Pamela's own. The citation in the board minutes read, "Breach of fiduciary duty and conduct inconsistent with organizational values." She lost her seat on 2 other boards in the subsequent weeks. Phone calls that were made with the kind of professional regret that doesn't include an offer to reconsider. She called the board chair twice. He was, both times, in a meeting. 3 weeks later, Jake Webb put on his new rain jacket before school. It was dark blue with a reflective stripe on the sleeve, the one he'd pointed at in the store window 2 months ago, saying nothing because he knew the answer without asking. It fit perfectly. He zipped it to the chin and checked himself in the hallway mirror with the serious expression of a person satisfied with his choices. Marcus watched from the kitchen door. The electric bill was current. The brake pads had been replaced. There was enough in the checking account that Marcus had stopped doing the arithmetic in his head every morning, which was the kind of freedom that costs nothing and feels like everything. His phone buzzed on the counter. He picked it up and smiled. Jake looked over from the mirror. "Who is it?" "Diana." Jake considered this. "The important lady from your building?" "She's not at my building anymore. I don't work there anymore." "Why not?" "Long story." Jake accepted this. Put his backpack on. Then, "Is she nice?" Marcus read the message. She was asking if Jake liked lasagna. She'd been told by a reliable source, Bria, who had somehow obtained this information, that it was his second favorite food after garlic bread. "She is," Marcus said. "Very," he typed back. "Is the lasagna homemade?" 3 dots. "Then, I looked up the recipe 3 days ago. It's homemade if your definition includes YouTube tutorials." He smiled. Typed. "Works for me, 6 o'clock." She met them at the door of an apartment on the west side of the city. A good size, warm. The kind of place where you could tell someone actually lived rather than just occupied. She was in jeans and a light sweater, which was the first time Marcus had seen her in anything other than a suit. She looked younger. She looked like herself. Jake walked in and immediately asked where the bathroom was, and then whether the lasagna had mushrooms in it, and then, upon being told there were no mushrooms, said it sounded really good. They ate at a table with mismatched chairs and a view of the city lights coming on through the window. Jake explained the difference between a neutron star and a black hole with the focused intensity of someone who considers this an urgent gap in the adult world's education. Diana asked follow-up questions with the expression of someone genuinely interested, which she appeared to be. Marcus watched her listen to his son. There is a particular thing that happens when you watch someone pay real attention to a child, not the polite version, not the gracious endurance of it, but actual interest, actual presence. It doesn't look like anything dramatic. It looks exactly like what it is. Jake fell asleep on the couch after dinner. He did this sometimes, just folded. Suddenly, mid-thought, the way kids do when the world has run out of things to offer them for the day. Marcus moved a blanket over him. Diana was in the kitchen. He found her leaning against the counter with a second glass of wine, looking out the window at the rain that had started while they were eating. "He's good," she said quietly. "Your son. He makes it easy." She turned to look at him. Something in her face was different than it had been. Less defended, maybe, or just more tired in the right way. "You gave up a lot," she said. "For him." "No, he meant it entirely. I gave up a job. I kept everything that mattered." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I've been running Callaway since I was 32. I built it myself. I fought for every piece of it." She looked at her glass. "I thought that was everything. And now?" She looked at him. Something in her expression moved and settled. "I'm revising," she said. Outside, the rain came down on the city. Inside, it was warm. Jake slept on the couch with the reliable weight of a child who trusts where he is. Diana's shoulder was close enough that Marcus could feel the warmth of her. He found her hand on the counter, held it without saying anything. She turned her hand over, held his back. They stood there while the rain did what rain does, indifferent and steady, and exactly what you need when you're inside, somewhere safe. A family being made, carefully and without announcement, the way things that last are always made, one honest evening at a time.